You're tuned to The Drive on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. Steelers Nation Radio.
Good afternoon, Steelers Nation. It's The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. Wes Uhler, Matt Williamson with you here for the next 2 hours on a pretty quiet Wednesday in Western Pennsylvania, Matt. Not really much going on lately. Art Rooney II, of course, team president of your Pittsburgh Steelers, speaking this afternoon, just a couple hours ago, the day after the news came down that Mike Tomlin was stepping down after 19 years as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. We have got obviously plenty to discuss. I figured to...
I doubt there'll be any bombshells dropping during the show to the level of yesterday, by the way.
Hey.
It took us aback a little bit.
It sure did. Adam Thielen announced his retirement. I don't think that's quite as much of a
Great
bombshell
career.
as Mike Tomlin stepping down after 19 years. But that certainly deserves a mention here.
It does mean,
before we get caught up in all the Mike Tomlin and Art Rooney II stuff. Big congratulations to Adam Thielen on a great career and all the best to him.
Yeah, and he was useful pickup, right.
Pretty big fourth down conversion on Monday night in that game. So, yeah, all the best to him as he gets into the next phase of his life. But today, it was Art Rooney II speaking, of course, in the aftermath of Mike Tomlin's decision. Here was we obviously a bunch of different comments and questions that we want to get into here, and we'll do that to start and probably into segment number 2, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But here was Art Rooney II's opening statement when he began his press conference today.
As you know, yesterday, Coach Tomlin and I met, and Mike informed me of his decision to step down as head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it was an emotional day for everybody in our organization yesterday. Mike's been a great leader of our franchise now for 19 years and led us with toughness, integrity, and always reflected the values of our organization.
Not surprising. Something you and I made sure to mention yesterday. Something that I hope isn't lost on people. I know we've mentioned this, and I'm sure we'll continue. It's a cutthroat business. Mm-hmm. It's easy to look at coaches and players like they're just football cards, and you collect them and you trade them, and
Madden
they come and they go.
Fantasy football.
It's a Madden or a fantasy football league, something like that, absolutely. But for 19 years, everything that Mr. Rooney said there was spot on about Mike Tomlin. And he leaves Pittsburgh with his head held high.
Absolutely. A very successful mission that went on a long time. And I kept saying these last 24 hours, folks, you guys, including us, got a lot more smiles than frowns out of it. I mean, that's for sure. It was a heck of a good run that I think any owner, any organization would take over a two-decade span.
Absolutely, and funny you said that. One of the things that we'll hear from Art Rooney II on here momentarily, or in fact, let's go ahead and do it now.
Rev it up.
He was asked about the timeline of the coaching search and kind of the parameters.
Okay,
and it's funny. We'll play the clip here, but you hear him mention, "Hey, I'd take another Bill Cowher. I'd take another Mike Tomlin. I'd take another Chuck Noll."
Heck
so
yeah.
on timeline and parameters of what the Steelers are looking for, here's what Art Rooney II said earlier.
I don't want to put an exact time frame on it. We'll get started right away, and it'll take weeks at least, I would say. Nowadays there are a number of protocols we have to follow that are sort of really designed to slow the process down, and so as I say, it'll probably take at least a few weeks.
You guys haven't done this very often over the years, but you've had a type. Does young, up-and-coming defensive coordinator still work as a blueprint, or once you expand that?
For now, I don't want to sort of put any real parameters around it. We're going to, be an open book in terms of, who we look for and the, the list that we build. Could I sign up for another Chuck Noll or another Bill Cowher or another Mike Tomlin? Sure. Somebody that we feel fits that mold would be great, but for now we're not going to kind of narrow the box too much.
I don't think that surprises anybody.
No, right.
But it's still good to hear. It was the funny joke by Mr. Rooney of like, I'd sign up for the next Chuck Noll or Bill Cowher or Mike Tomlin.
That works.
I think any of us would. That means the next guy is going to win a Super Bowl, at least one, and
A lot of successful seasons.
150 plus games.
Right, not bad. Yeah.
Division titles and all those different things. But that, Matt, to me, is it's the answer I expected. I didn't expect Mr. Rooney to say, yeah, we're going young, up-and-coming defensive coordinator, like you heard the great Mike Pursuta there, and that has been. Or
say exactly what they're looking for, like we're only looking for offensive guy.
Exactly right. Exactly right. I think that it's safe to say that is the archetype, of the type that the Steelers are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
But offensive, defensive, no parameters in that regard. And, I mean, that's what you want to hear. A wide casting, open to any type of candidate search that's about to kick off.
Yeah, and I'm not giving Pursuta a tough time about his question because I was asked the exact same thing. But I do find it funny that people, rightfully so, but think the Steelers have a type in terms of coaching hires.
Like they do this all the time.
Like, that's what I mean. It's not like the Browns or, some of these other teams that, consistently do this process. 3 times they've hired a guy who was young and an assistant and had some defensive background in my lifetime. I mean, before my lifetime. So Chuck Noll was Don Shula's assistant with the Colts. I don't know how that's at all relevant to today's coaching search. Cowher was mostly a special teams guy, and the Schottenheimer crew. Tomlin has a defensive background, and 20 years ago they were all young for the job. Okay, I mean that's a little bit to go off
few
of.
And far
right
in between, though.
Right,
it'd be a little different, Matt, if I was speed dating, or
right. I want blondes, and I want yeah,
blonde hair, blue eyes, stay at home mom. No shorter than 5'8" or whatever.
Right.
That's a consistent type. But you're right, it is kind of funny how
I get a kick out of that. Like, well, they got this certain type. I'm like, how do you know?
It's been 19 years.
And how involved was Mr. Rooney in the last hiring? And how who? A lot of people that help make that decision are no longer making that decision, and the league is changing rapidly. It's changed in the last 20 years. I mean, I just find it funny that people think the Steelers have a type.
It's a very fair point to raise because maybe you could say it's gone the same way the last 3 times, but that's over the course.
Kinda.
That's kinda.
Yeah.
It's also over the course of like 60 years almost.
Right.
It's not a tried and true formula and blueprint, and
Yeah, they were all young.
It's not you and I rocking up to the bar and we know what type of beer we want to drink.
Like, give me a Miller Lite.
It's the same type of beer that we drink.
Like, or he only drinks IPAs.
Right.
Like, okay, well, that's a type at least. Maybe it's not the exact same brew, but it's a little. I don't know. I think it's a little presumptuous all of a sudden.
That's a good way to put. That's a good word to use. That's the right used word.
Maybe they'll hire Mike McCarthy, who doesn't fit that mold at all. I mean, I don't know. I just think that it's crazy to think that we know exactly what type they're going to hire.
Yeah, they're going to hire Kurt Cignetti, 63 years old, never had an NFL gig. That's how they'll really buck the cycle here.
Right.
No, it's a good point. When you've only made 3 head coaching hires since 1969, since the Beatles were still on tour, it's hard to say you have a type.
Exactly. Right.
Successful winning a Super Bowl has been their type.
Yeah. I mean, the type is they hire good coaches that last.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, I think that's the type.
And with that, I don't think this will surprise anybody, but Art Rooney II saying, and I quote, "It'll take weeks at least," end quote, when he was asked about the timeline.
That shocked me a little. That sounded long. Okay. Just because, well, there are parameters. There's the Rooney rule.
Was it funny how he said there's parameters around these things?
It was perfect. Exactly.
What if he would have stopped and said, "I don't know if any of you have heard of this thing, but it's called the Rooney Rule."
I would say perfect opportunity to drop a joke. Like as a stand-up. Like. Thanks
to my family, this is going to take a little bit longer.
Not that I'm the most hilarious human being in the world, but I watch a lot of stand-up, and sometimes I'll be like, "Oh, you missed the joke there." I mean, there's a perfect setup, and I was sitting there thinking the whole time, I'm like, "Oh, you got to have something in there to get a chuckle out of everyone." But anyway, well, there's also a lot of these candidates are still active trying to win the Super Bowl.
That's a great part of it.
I hate the coaching hiring process. I mean, we've never had to go through it here, but it's so flawed in that, like, the best guys are all busy right now. You know what I mean? Or a lot of them, and putting your staff together, and there's advantageous situations for teams that hire first, and I don't know. I just think that there's a lot of goofiness to it.
Maybe it's just because I kind of look at it as the prism of, and this is probably wrong to do, but I compare it to college football, which is infinitely worse.
Wow, sure.
I mean, you've got coaches leaving Ole Miss before the playoff starts. You have assistant coaches leaving in the middle of the playoff because they have to get on top of the transfer portal of their new job.
The Niners defense coordinator is not going to leave this week before the game, right?
And now in college football, everyone's a free agent on a year-to-year basis, and so it's like I have to leave and go get my next quarterback or else he's going to be gone. Whereas now, hey, T.J. Watt might not love the next head coach, but guess what? He's under contract. Deal with it.
Yeah, he's going. He's here.
He's not going to enter the portal and leave if you don't hire the coach that he wants in the next week. You know,
you can't compare it to college.
You can't.
I mean, it's a different world.
But I just think the NFL is so collectively bargained that, and this was, Richie Walsh kind of asked a follow-up to a few weeks at least, saying, would you like to have one in place by the combine? And Mr. Rooney said, yeah, that seems like because if you're the Steelers now, what's the rush until the combine?
Well, your guy could go somewhere else.
He could.
You know what I mean? There's 9 jobs.
That's always but I look at the Tennessee Titans, who fired their coach back in October or November.
Giants are another one, right?
They haven't hired anybody yet.
Right.
I mean,
I'm not saying there's a rush. I'm just saying it doesn't have to be a month or whatever.
No, it
you know
doesn't,
what I mean?
But I also don't think it has to be a week from now.
No, or tomorrow, or yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I said that wrong. It shocked me.
I get what you're saying. Maybe I looked,
right.
Maybe I was a little too pedantic there too with your like exact words on taking weeks at least, according to Mr. Rooney. But
they probably already have ideas too.
Absolutely.
They have to. I mean, all 9 of these teams do.
Absolutely. And I think that's just something that even when you have a 19-year guy like Mike Tomlin, that's always something in the back of your mind. If I had to, where would I be going?
I was always curious about this. Does every organization in every sport have somebody in the organization that's at least like putting a list together?
I think they should.
I mean, even when Belichick was in his prime and Noel was winning Super Bowls, I mean, the most safest of coaches. I mean, they could retire. They could have even health issues, or
absolutely.
You know what I mean, right?
If
what's different than a free agent list in the offseason?
I think that's spot on. I think that's spot on, and I think even
you constantly look.
If you're involved with the Chiefs, you should still have an idea. If Andy Reid surprises us and walks into the office next week and says, I'm retiring, I can't do it anymore health-wise, I got to slow down.
I got a bad heart or whatever,
You should not be completely blindsided by that.
Right.
Again, the college conversation on this one is different, but like if you're an athletic director, you should have a list of names in your desk at all points.
I would say at all points.
At all points. And maybe the NFL is not quite that drastic, but you should at least know who the up-and-coming names would be if you had to go down that route, which I'm sure they do.
I'm sure they do. And I don't know the exact details of this, but I know that what I'm saying here is at least 85% true, that there is a service through the NFL that does this for you. I mean, I think they get paid by the NFL. I don't think it's like a private detective service type of situation. But I was actually joking on another podcast, like, I go to ESPN.com and find the list. I mean, like, there's lists everywhere.
Everyone's doing the list.
And if you're in the league, someone's recommending, man, keep an eye on this defensive coordinator. Or this defensive back coach is going to be an up-and-coming dude. Or even the year I spent with the Browns, Todd Bowles was a new coach. I mean, he was our assistant defensive back coach. So I mean, that's low on the rung, and we were a bad team. But everyone in the building knew he had a really bright future. Yeah. You know what I mean? He was
like maybe when he was just a special teams guy.
I'm sure Tomlin was that way. Yeah, I mean, he had to have been.
I don't think someone's walking into the room and going, you know who we should put on our list to contact about an interview? How about that Chris Shula guy from the Rams?
Oh,
right?
really?
Oh, yeah, I didn't think about him.
Is he related to Don at all? Yeah, right. Is he from that family? Oh, wow. Never heard of him.
Oh, wow. Mike McDaniel. Yeah, that would be an interesting name to kick the tires on here. Yeah.
Let alone all the dudes that just got let go. I mean, just Stefanski's and McDaniel. They were head coach 10 minutes ago.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So a whole bunch more to get into. We're just kind of scratching the surface of this. And
we are going to talk candidates going forward.
Buddy,
right.
Are we ever? You know it. It's gonna be a unique few weeks of radio here until the Steelers name their head coach. But we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna have some fun.
Yeah,
with
it's a lot different for me. I'm out of my comfort zone. I'm psyched to do it.
Me too. But I'm very psyched to do it. I mean, this is the first time I've ever done this. For the Steelers as a radio host. Because there was obviously much more to get into. What did Art Rooney II have to say about Mike Tomlin's coaching future? What did Art Rooney II have to say about Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers' quarterback future?
Cool.
We'll get into all those things and more as we roll along here. Just getting started on a massive Wednesday on the drive. Wes Uhler, Matt Williamson. It's Steelers Nation Radio on the Steelers Audio Network. Back on the drive here. I feel like Matt, like I'm working in the circus trying to do a juggling.
Yep.
It's like every time I think I know what we're about to talk about, there's more news and more moving parts.
This whole week's gonna be like that. Yeah.
This whole week is gonna be like that. So before we jump back into Art Rooney II's comments, just some quick housekeeping of what we know now. Steelers have put in a request to interview two different members of the LA Rams coaching staff for their vacant head coaching position. First, pass game coordinator Nate Scheelhaus. And second, of course, the name that everybody knows and is speculated upon, unless you've been living on a rock, you've already heard Chris Shula being thrown out there, the Rams defensive coordinator. Those two, according to Adam Schefter, the Steelers have officially put in a request to interview for their vacant head coaching position.
Is there any way you get both?
Yes.
I think that's possible.
Absolutely.
But what I don't understand, and maybe it's just because I don't have the Rams, webpage up in front of me. Don't they have an offensive coordinator?
I believe so.
Because you can't steal an offensive coordinator and make him an offensive
for
coordinator.
A lateral move.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it's Mike LaFleur, Matt LaFleur's brother.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So you could steal both if Shula was the head guy and Steelhouse was the offense coordinator.
Correct.
Right. Both have great reputations. So we have not had this conversation, but we have to. My second least favorite thing to talk about in my job is assistant coaches. My first is injuries.
Medical stuff.
Right. Injuries I know I don't know. How quick is that knee going to heal? How do I know? But anyway, assistant coaches, especially being around teams, I think that's when you really understand what people do behind the scenes.
Totally.
Some teams don't even allow their assistant coaches to do interviews. So a lot of our information when we talk about these coaching hires, let alone when they start to build after the really hard one is the new coach is hired and then he builds a whole new staff, and someone's going to ask us, well, what do you think of this tight ends coach? I'm like, I don't know anything about him. I can read his bio just like anybody else. Yeah. Right. I can go to Wikipedia or whatever like everybody else. But so I want to preface that it's not like a draft prospect or what do you think of the DK Metcalf trade? It's like, well, I can watch tape and I can give you an opinion on it. But these guys are tough because I don't know what his game day, what his Wednesday was during the season or what they're doing right now as they prepare for their game, these Rams dudes.
And how much credit does the pass game coordinator deserve versus the offensive coordinator versus the head coach versus...
Right. But these are names that everyone's talking about, particularly Shula, but both of them. They're both young. Their resumes to this point are very, very impressive. By all accounts, they're super bright. I think McVay's the best head coach in the league.
He would absolutely be on the very short list for me.
And the history of folks that have been under his wing going on and doing things is strong.
Much better than Bill Belichick's coaching tree.
Yeah, exactly. Like, part of that worries me. It's not like, well, if you draft a linebacker for Penn State, he's going to be good. It's not quite helmet scouting, but that does worry me a little. Like, just because Belichick's last guy got hired means the next guy's going to stink, or because he stunk. But I do think there is something to it because you spend so much time. People know this, but when you're in an organization, it probably would startle you how much time the defensive staff spends together. I mean, it's like since I was in recruiting,
more than with their families during the season.
Oh yeah, times not even close. But I mean, like a lot of times, but especially during the season, I would roam around Pitt's office, and you might see one of the admins, the director of football ops, but it's quiet because the whole defensive staff is in one room, and the whole offensive staff's in another. And that's why I got to be buddies with Larry Fitzgerald because frankly, he didn't love class. He never wanted to leave the facility. He wanted to do more football, more football, more football. So he'd be there and like, I've been lifting for an hour. I have nothing else to do. Can I sit here and watch recruiting tape with you? I'm like, sure, dude. Because they're not going to let him go bug the people in the offensive staff room.
Right.
So those are the guys that know who the best guys in the room are. You know what I mean? So a lot of this is reputation. I just wanted to get that out of the way because we're going to do this for weeks. I have a feeling.
No,
but those are the names I wanted to hear.
That's a great
cut the chase.
Great point to make. And I think, a great recent example of that is, and I'm just completely plucking this out of left field, but for years and years and years, everyone was like, why isn't Eric Bieniemy getting a head coaching job? Why isn't Eric Bieniemy getting a head coaching job? You didn't know how much the people within the organization felt like he was really successful for Patrick Mahomes and their offense and how they were winning. Sometimes there's someone who's
like, well, Andy Reid did the offense and he's a running back coach, or right.
Sometimes there's someone behind the scenes who's not getting nearly enough credit. Sometimes there's someone towards the forefront who is maybe getting too much credit. And I'm not saying that was just the example most recent of like, why is this coach not getting a head coaching job? Why is this coach not getting a head coaching job?
Because they won a ton of games and championships, and he's the next guy in charge. Well, shouldn't he go get a head guy? Right.
But yeah, I mean,
maybe not.
Maybe not. You never know.
And I'm not picking on Bieniemy, but in his case, I heard he wasn't a particularly good interview.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah. That adds up.
Hey, and that
again, it's all secondhand information. I don't sit down on these interviews.
A million different things that go into these equations. And another thing, I know this won't surprise you, and we'll get back to it in a second. But another thing that Art Rooney II said was, when we interviewed Mike Tomlin in 2007, we weren't expecting him to be our next head coach.
No, I think that's common knowledge.
I think everybody knows that.
I thought it was Malarkey or Grimm.
Exactly right.
They knew better.
Exactly right. In fact, there were even people in Pittsburgh that were reporting that it was Russ Grimm.
Yeah.
Before they announced that it was Mike Tomlin.
I got the impression it was a tough decision.
Oh, without a doubt.
Sure.
Without a doubt.
And this one will be too.
And I hope they have their list, right? They've got their top 2 or 3 names, and then they've probably got the next group of people too. Just as this always goes. I hope that in that next group of people, there's someone that they think, let's interview this person, let's talk to them. They'll be good to talk to, good to chat with, that comes in and blows their doors off.
And to be honest and to be frank, I hope people don't take us the wrong way, but that's a big reason the Rooney Rule exists.
100%.
Is just to get somebody else in the door. Both of us are white men. If we're both interviewing for the job and it looks like we're Grimm and Malarkey and we're both highly qualified, well, we got to bring in one more, and maybe they're in the second group. You think it's 2-horse race, and they're like, oh, this dude's incredible. Sign me up.
Sign me up.
And I'm not sure that's what happened with Tomlin, but I mean, that's get me in the door, and that's why the Rooney Rule exists, I think.
Absolutely, and that's why.
But I like these 2 names.
Me too.
Great start.
Me too. And we also know at this time,
and they are young. I mean, so maybe they are just going to take the young guy. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Hey, if they're looking for someone who's young in their 30s and ascending in their career.
Yep. Look no further.
Look no further, fella. You found him. I'll do it a lot cheaper than these guys would. I'm just kidding. But if I do that, then Matt Williamson's coming with me. Okay, he's getting a job too. I want to get into some of Mr. Rooney's comments on the coaching staff, on the current coaching staff.
Oh, okay.
But what we do know now too is that the Cardinals have requested to interview Arthur Smith for their vacant head coaching job. So he got a request from the Titans a few days ago. Now the Cardinals.
Okay.
So that's just some other moving and shaking.
I haven't heard Mr. Rooney's comments, but I wonder if the Steelers will at least sit down with him.
Yes. And I'm looking for the exact quote here. Of course, it's somewhere in my notes, and I wasn't. We're all over the place. I was planning on going to this specifically in the next segment. But one of the things that he talked about was how none of the current members of the coaching staff will be in consideration for the head job.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
which I'm perfectly fine with. I think that's
what
great.
I was going to say.
I'm more and more excited about change.
I think it's. I'm happy for Arthur Smith that he's getting these opportunities. And if the Steelers were going to interview him, I wouldn't be kicking and screaming and pulling my hair out.
Yeah.
But I'm ready for change.
They also know him pretty well.
They know him pretty well, and I'm ready for change.
And I think that's what they want.
I think that's what they want. You and I.
That doesn't mean they'll gut the building. Who knows? But they might.
I hope they keep the radio network at least going on. You and I had this conversation back in July or August, early in training camp. I'm going to harken.
And real quick, when I say gut the building, I mean the coaching staff.
Yes,
I'm not talking about like every.
No, what he means is a remodel. So if you run a construction company in Western Pennsylvania, not only do they want resumes for the head coaching job, but if you could put in your plans to gut the whole building. I'm going to harken back to this for you for a second here as we kind of continue to zig and zag all over the place.
Yeah, sure.
I promise we will get to what Mr. Rooney said on Mike Tomlin's future and Aaron Rodgers' future. I don't know if you remember this, but let me harken back to this for a second. When you and I, it would have been late July, early August, one of the first days of training camp, we were having a conversation about all the significant change the Steelers had in their offseason.
Okay. Yeah.
And, talking about Aaron Rodgers and Jalen Ramsey and,
Metcalf.
And Metcalf.
Yeah.
And you're still relatively early in the Arthur Smith tenure here, And we talked about real significant change for the Steelers organization in the this past offseason ahead of training camp. And you and I butted heads on one little point. And I don't know if you recall this, but I think you had said something along the lines of the Steelers made about as much significant change as you could make for an organization in an offseason, which I agree with you with in the most part. I mean, your quarterback on down the line, a lot of key players. But I said something to you along the lines of, as much as the Steelers have really changed the organization over this past offseason and in the years before, new general manager, new coordinators, new quarterback, lot of significant. I don't feel like you can really turn the page. You can really close a chapter. You can really start a new book unless the head coach changes.
Yeah.
And I remember you and I having that conversation of if I own a restaurant, I can bring in new line cooks and new bartenders and new servers, and that's all significant. But until I change the chef, that's really the ultimate change.
You're still going to run practices the same way and travel and press conference. I mean, there's all the stuff that the head coach is in charge of,
It sounds like, and we're still early in this process, but that the Steelers are going to use this as an opportunity to really affect widespread change. Not just,
I would think
not just one or two coaches, not just a significant portion of the roster, not a general manager, but along with the head coach, we are going to usher in an entirely new era. You had this conversation. You brought this great point up when the Steelers acquired Kyle Duggar. You were like, he can still play. Don't let the almost, Patriots getting rid of this guy, what they did with Jabril Peppers.
Yeah.
Because when you're really changing over, when you're really ushering in a new era, sometimes there's people that are good at their jobs that are just, you were part of the last regime, we're going a different direction here.
Oh, tons.
And there will be tons of people that are good at their jobs on the Steelers coaching staff that move in a new direction here.
Yeah.
I think that's an exciting thing. This is the time for the organization, for Art Rooney II and company, to affect vast, significant change.
And I think that's definitely coming. Yeah. I mean, yesterday wasn't the day to discuss that. Today is. And I'm not saying it's for the best, but I'm excited about it. And frankly, I kind of do think it's for the best. I'm something Dale and I used to talk about a lot was door number 2 or go fish.
Yeah.
We'd be like, well, this is a nice player, but I'm kind of interested in what door number 2 might be. And that's an unknown, or let's go fish. I'm kind of excited to go fish,
Yeah.
It might be much worse. I mean, the standards are very high. It's going to be hard to live up to that. But I think change is a good thing in this instance.
I think there's a great chance that this team doesn't win double-digit games and win the AFC North next year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah.
I think there's a solid chance for the first time in nearly a quarter century the Steelers have a losing record next year. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
We'll spend
I want you to know who the quarterback is.
I was just going to say, we don't need to do this now because we're going to spend hours and hours over the coming months talking about the quarterback situation. But for right now, if it's Mason Rudolph, if it's Will Howard, if it's a retread veteran that's not going to be Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers,
if it's a first-round pick,
and even if it's a first-round pick that in all likelihood is not going to be Fernando Mendoza,
right,
you, in all likelihood, it's more likely that you'll take a step back in 2026 before you take a step forward, but that's all part of significant wholesale change. And again, we could be here in 3-4 years kind of banging our head against the desks of we're still trying to find this right equation and get back to getting in the dance every year and those double-digit win seasons and division titles. But there's a real chance that, that
it could get worse before it gets better, for
Absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely. In fact,
That's a risky take, right?
I would say it's even more likely that that's the case because that's just history tells us that that's what happens more often than not.
Yeah, and this is true for all coaching changes, but often an argument for not making a coaching change. And I understand the Steelers did not fire Coach Tomlin; he resigned. But man, the guy really gets worse. Take the chance. I mean, you got to roll the dice. You know, I mean, this is more suited towards the other organizations. You know, Miami. I know what this guy is. He's a decent coach. I'm afraid that we're going to get worse at the position. So.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean he has to be here for 20 years.
Right.
If he's terrible, get rid of him.
The next coach doesn't have to be here for 19 years.
Right.
You know?
You're looking for the answer no matter as long as it takes. That'll get you a Super Bowl title.
Exactly right. Plenty more to get into here as we roll along. What did Art Rooney II have to say about Mike Tomlin's coaching future? What did he have to say about Aaron Rodgers' future? Let's touch on that when we return. Wes Uhler, Matt Williamson. It is The Drive on Steelers Nation Radio on the Steelers Audio Network. Back on The Drive here as we roll along. It's a busy week. It's a busy time. And speaking of NFL draft news, Dante Moore has decided to return to Oregon for the 2026 season.
That's earth-shaking, right?
Crazy.
Yeah.
Because Dylan Raiola, who's one of the top quarterbacks in the transfer portal, just committed to Oregon.
He's the Nebraska guy, right?
The Nebraska, guy who's obsessed with Patrick Mahomes and does the same hair and routine and everything.
We brought him up, right. His dad was a great center. Blah,
yes.
Blah, blah. Yeah.
That's crazy because I thought for sure once he made that announcement a few days ago, oh, well, that means Dante. Why would Oregon go out and pay big money to a quarterback? Why would that quarterback want to come there and sit behind Dante Moore? Now maybe that throws maybe Raiola will end up going somewhere else now. But
okay, so that's not like binding set in stone. Like he could get out of that now?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so. So we will obviously
But every mock in the world had Moore going second overall or in the top 3. The quarterback group took a hit. I mean, I'm just talking from a Steeler NFL perspective.
It's going to be Fernando Mendoza, number 1.
Yeah.
And then a lot of questions about how it shakes out.
A lot of speculation.
A lot of speculation. And
again, I have a lot of work to do, but I got some real doubts about Ty Simpson.
Same.
And if you're clear too, man, he's happy about it. But
all these guys. I mean, Carson Beck and Trinidad Chambliss should be happy about it. Everyone not named Fernando Mendoza should be happy about this. And obviously, we will have plenty more on that as we roll along with that significant, surprising news.
Jets aren't happy about it.
Jets not happy. maybe
I would say maybe there's something to do with.
Maybe that's the reason why. And this will be part of the. I'm warming up more to the.
That's big news.
Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, some veteran quarterback, tread water for a year.
Oh, you're going to hear me talk about Malik Willis a lot, by the way. But just warning
okay,
you now.
That's fine. That's fine. Actually, I would sign up for that. We'll save it, Wes. We got plenty of time. Plenty of time. Obviously, a lot of conversation, and you and I made sure to mention many times yesterday that the Steelers did not fire Mike Tomlin, which is important as it relates to his rights. He's almost like an asset in a way, still under contract for the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. When asked about, Mike Tomlin coaching elsewhere, if he could have any opportunities this offseason, Art Rooney II said, and I quote, that he indicated he did not anticipate coaching, at least, in the near future, end quote. Now, that's obviously very open-ended.
Right.
Near future could just mean this year.
Absolutely. Could do the Sean Payton 1 year in the booth or whatever,
But near future could also mean in the next 2 or 3 years. And I don't know if you've answered this on your Twitter or on some of the podcasts that you do, but I've gotten some questions about how does that work do they have Mike Tomlin's rights in perpetuity until he decides to come back from coaching?
Boy, I hope Wes doesn't ask me that because I don't know.
Well, I know the answer.
Oh, good.
Because I went and looked it up for you. The Steelers retain Mike Tomlin's rights for 2 years regardless through the 2027 season.
Okay.
So if Mike Tomlin spends the next 2 years doing TV, doing anything, sitting on a beach, doing anything, the Steelers will no longer have his rights. So if it's 3, 4, 5 seasons from now until Mike Tomlin, anything more than 2 years, Mike Tomlin decides to return to coaching, You don't have that same Sean Payton, we still retain his rights, we can trade him. It would have to be ahead of that 2027 season 2 years from now. That's a significant wrinkle in this equation.
It is. Now, it's first I've heard that. But if I'm an owner 2 years from now looking for a coach and Tomlin has done nothing in the NFL, and he wouldn't have, I would be a lot less attractive than now or a year from now.
That is,
you know what I mean?
Like, it almost makes me chuckle when you say it out loud. Fast. But yes, taking a year off,
especially if you're doing broadcasting and you're at games and
still involved,
you're not on the beach, right, and you just take a step back or whatever.
2 years though, that's
if you're doing nothing football related, except in some stuff on your own time.
That's
and talking
2
to your
draft
buddies.
classes,
right,
two free agency classes. And
you know nothing about Mendoza as a prospect, or or in the next group, and all those things. You can get behind. His value to me as an owner 2 years from now would be drastically less than it is now, or even a year from now, depending what he does in the meantime. Doesn't mean he wouldn't still get hired. But I also find it funny, and I understand why it happens, but Sean Payton, for example, and Tomlin will be in the exact same boat. I'm going to use that over and over.
No, it's a great parallel to draw right now.
And they're both Hall of Fame type coaches, and
Super Bowl, and the
Broncos are thrilled. It's a good deal for them. But I find it funny because the coach has to say yes. I mean, he's not just, you can't just trade him like you could trade, Metcalf or Watt or whoever. You're going to Arizona. I don't want to go to Arizona. Well, then either don't play anymore and not get paid anymore. But the coach has to at least say, yes, I'm going to go be the head coach of the Raiders or Rams or whatever. But you're taking something away from his new team. And usually it's a pretty significant pick.
It's a first and a third for Sean Payton, right?
Like, boy, I'm really excited to be the Raiders' next head coach. But I was a lot more excited when I had the first-round pick or the second-round pick or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, you're stealing from your new team.
Yes. Yes, you're almost you're cutting draft capital from the team you're about to join. It's a bizarre world.
To be that coach. Right. Like, it's awesome this new team loves me, but I wish we had our picks.
And it's a heck of a testament to the Broncos because they were in cap hell.
There's a Russell Wilson situation.
And had to give up some picks.
Yeah.
And still ended up making that thing work with Sean Payton. It's a testament to him.
And it often works.
It does.
I mean, like Gruden got traded and they won a Super Bowl.
That's the big one.
Right.
Yeah.
Rarely it's like, man, we threw a bunch of draft picks out. It's for good coaches.
Because it's for good coaches.
Yeah, that are established.
Yes. Do you see I am pretty confident that Mike Tomlin will not coach in 2026 based off of what Art Rooney II said today and based off what people like the Adam Schefters of the world have reported, people that aren't just willy-nilly, I heard from a source, like Schefter reported Tomlin will not coach in 2026. He's not going to say that unless he's almost ironclad that he's
Tomlin's agent.
Correct.
All these insiders get stuff from agents mostly.
But what if it's a week from now? Okay.
See, that's what I was going to say.
Dust and smoke has settled a little bit in a week. People have calmed down. They've slept on it for a week. You bring that heart rate and that pulse and that holy bleep factor down a little bit. It's a week or two from now. And one of these bad, desperate teams, like the Arizona Cardinals or the Tennessee Titans or the Giants or the Raiders, still don't have a head coach.
Like the Raiders keep coming to mind to me because they would do anything to be 8 or 9 win team. And that's why they hired Pete Carroll 1 year ago for the exact same reason. It just didn't work.
I'm Tom Brady, okay?
Yeah.
I'm with the Raiders ownership. I'm Tom Brady. And I call up Mike Tomlin's agent, and I say, we want to trade for him, but obviously we need your sign-off here.
Is Mike still interested in coaching?
We will give him an extension that makes him the highest paid coach in the NFL.
That's what I'm saying.
We will give him full autonomy over our roster and personnel decisions and his coaching staff.
That's what I was sitting there thinking. Like,
and if you're the Steelers, it's like, Arizona, I'll take your 3rd overall pick. Thank you very much. Like, I wonder if there's a scenario where that would still happen, where someone before the draft.
It's in stone that he's not going to coach because he might not even know that answer. I mean, he might be like, boy, a year off sounds great. I miss my family. Maybe I will do some TV, radio, whatever. But again, these owners have so much money. If they say, well, what if I double your contract?
So it's
okay.
So Andy Reid is the highest paid coach in the NFL at about $20 million annually. Okay, Sean Payton, 18. And then it was thought that Tomlin and Harbaugh were next in line. Again, these are not exactly known.
It's not like
but
you can go to like Spot Track and find
exactly right. But if someone like the Raiders or the Cardinals or the Giants says, Mike, if you come back this year, we'll give you everything. We'll give you everything. $25 million a year. Here's your extension. All the autonomy you want over the staff and the personnel.
Hire
and
everybody
the draft.
you want. Right.
It'd be very interesting.
And I would understand it if I was especially a perennial loser.
Totally.
Again,
but if I'm the Steelers, I'm like, I want that 4th overall pick. I want that 3rd overall pick from Arizona. And then maybe it becomes less attractive to Mike Tomlin to go and take a job like that right now when I'm not going to have the top 5 pick that comes with it.
As you can imagine, I've been asked this a ton in the last 24 hours, well, can the Steelers get one of these top 2 or 3 picks?
Yeah.
I bet not.
I bet not, but
I bet you get the first pick in the 2nd round and something else.
Maybe their 1st round pick in 2027.
Yeah, or 7. I mean, 2 significant picks then. I don't think you're going to get a top 5. I don't think you're going to get Mendoza out of it. You know how many times I've been tweeted about Mendoza in the last,
I mean, that'd be the easiest. If Mike Tomlin is willing to get traded to the Raiders and signs off on that and you get the 1st overall pick.
It's great.
Why would Mike Tomlin want to go to the Raiders if he's not going to have Mendoza?
Exactly. And it's too much to give up.
Exactly.
It is.
Exactly right.
And we'll get this out of the way. I double-checked it. Peyton was traded for – it was Peyton and Peyton and a 2nd for a 1st and a 3rd. And I think the 1st rounder was late from the Broncos. It was not a top 5 pick, that's for sure.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been in terms of the timeline there.
Because I think they were middle of the pack. Middle of the pack.
It was a decent pick. I mean, it wasn't.
It was like the 15th pick or something like that.
It wasn't the 29th.
No,
it was, yes, it wasn't top 10.
They
wasn't
obviously
top
weren't
5.
Super Bowl champions, the pick they gave up. But I think it was the Saints sent them a 2nd, and they got a 1st and a 3rd, I think. I know the 2nd, 3rd thing was some sort of swap. But it was a...
Yeah. Yes.
But I think that's kind of the going rate.
It is the going rate, certainly. And yeah, I mean, if you and I are down at Rivers Casino or whatever, like I'm putting my chip down on Mike Tomlin taking at least a year off.
Yeah.
But a week or 2 from now, things can change very quickly in this league. What if a job like the Bills or the Packers or something comes open?
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of why Harbaugh's even hanging around.
I mean, what if the Bills go to New England and lose by 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns,
right?
And McDermott's out.
McDermott's situation is not much different than Harbaugh's end of Ravens situation. You got the best-ish quarterback in the league, and you can't get me to exactly where I want. Change would be nice. Yeah, I hear you. Or, man, maybe Coach loves Cam Ward. You know what I mean? Like, no one ever thinks of this. Like, people assume, the Steelers pushed them out. Well, maybe he looked at the Steelers situation like, I don't know how I can get my next quarterback. But I look at Tennessee and be like,
he's already there.
Or maybe he loves Jackson Dart, or you know what I mean?
Like, look at the Raiders.
Right.
I can draft.
I love Mendoza, or I'd love to work with that young kid, and he gets a new lease on life, and the Steelers get a good pick out of it, and everybody's happy. I don't know. And just a lot of angles.
There's so much to dissect and analyze, and it could still go a million different ways.
And it'll be even interesting too if Tomlin says tomorrow, I'm working for NBC or Fox or whatever. Well, all year we're going to be like, don't forget in that 2027 draft, the Steelers do have an asset that they can use,
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Like, how are they ever going to get their quarterback? Well, they finished with a 7-10 record with the new coach, and they have the 12th pick in the draft.
It was funny, actually. It was the 29th. I was like, it wasn't the 29th overall pick or something.
It was later in the mid.
It was the 29th pick. The Saints received the Broncos' 2023 first-round pick, 29th overall, and their 2024 second-round pick.
I'm trying – what I couldn't remember is why Denver ended up picking 29th, because they must have made a trade before that.
So they got a 2023 first and a 2024 second and third.
Okay.
Is what the Saints got.
Oh, wow. I thought the Saints – I thought the Saints had to send a second or third back with Peyton. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
Maybe I'm reading this wrong. My reading comprehension, Strong's. Okay, Saints will receive the Broncos' first-round pick in 2023 and 2024 second-round pick. Oh, and then sorry, you're right. The Saints sent back the third-round pick.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So it was a day 2 pick swap.
Yes.
And I knew it was a late first, but I couldn't remember why Denver, because it wasn't like Denver was 14-2
Well,
when they made
that kind of kiboshes the
I don't think
pie in the sky scenario of ending up with a top 5 pick or something like that.
I think that's unrealistic.
Yeah.
People need to get that out of their head.
The last one here, Matt, that obviously warrants a quick conversation is the future of Aaron Rodgers. And, of course, Art Rooney II asked about if Tomlin's decision to step down will impact Aaron Rodgers' thoughts about a potential second season with the team and continuing his career. Art Rooney said, and I quote, "Aaron came here to play for Mike, so I think it will most likely affect his decision," end quote.
Okay.
That doesn't surprise us. I also think though, when it wasn't even like Mr. Rooney attempted to sugarcoat that and leave the door open, I think that pretty much closes the book on Aaron. Unless the next head coach were to come in and say, "I absolutely want that guy,"
right?
I think that probably about closes the book.
Or
on,
if there's
on
some
Aaron
obvious
Rodgers.
connection, LaFleur gets fired, and something like that. Maybe Rodgers may have not thought he's not playing no matter what.
Totally.
And maybe everyone in the organization knows. Maybe it's the worst kept secret in the world. Like, I'm done, guys. I'm really only doing 1 year. Who knows? But Rodgers did make it pretty clear. A huge reason I'm coming here is because of Coach T. There's so much respect for Tomlin around the league. Plus, the Rodgers experiment worked out, and better than I even expected. But if we are talking about wholesale changes in terms of what you were saying before about let's really make changes, it's probably a good year to go a different direction at that position too.
Sure. Absolutely.
I mean, running it back would not be the same way of running it back at all.
No.
And at most you get 1 year out of them. Which I would be really intrigued to have Rodgers sit in a quarterback room with a young pup. I would love that. But, I kind of thought after Tomlin resigned, the chance of Rodgers coming back is slim.
It's a new era. It's a new day.
That doesn't mean he won't be the Vikings quarterback.
Certainly a
He was
possibility.
linked to them before, right?
Certainly a possibility, but I would be, at this point in time, I would be shocked if he is back for a second season with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
Hour in the books, another hour to go. We're going to continue to talk about this conversation, talk about this Steelers job. Maybe we'll get into some pros and cons. If you were one of the coaches interviewing with the Steelers, what would you like? What would you be concerned by? And we will talk to the great Chris Adamski. He was at Art Rooney II's press conference today. We'll get his thoughts in hour number 2 as well. All that and more as we roll along halfway home on the drive. Steelers Nation Radio on the Steelers Audio Network. Good evening, Steeler Nation. How we doing? Well, that's good. Us too. It is hour number 2 here of the drive on the Steelers Audio Network, of course, on Steelers Nation Radio, as we continue to bob and weave on this this crazy week, talking a little Art Rooney II.
How crazy did our life just become, though?
Wild.
I mean, this is a day and a half after the Steelers were eliminated in ugly fashion, and we don't even bring up the game.
Matt, we spent 2 segments in total, probably a half an hour in total. That's a great point by you.
Right.
We spent probably a half an hour total talking about a Steelers home playoff loss.
Yeah, right.
That was a debacle in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
That was like, what, the 6th straight
And we're not ignoring it, folks.
6 straight but now it seems so insignificant.
Right. It's yesterday's news.
Matt, you know this. I don't do much, but I do a little outline for the show.
Yeah, I see you scribbling
It's
over
not
it once in a
it's
while,
like a couple words of what we should talk about on each segment.
Yeah.
For our next segment, I literally have Adamski written. That's it. I mean, you know what I mean? So it's not. It's
There's
just a
maybe
very
6 things
of topics that I want to make sure we hit on
power
the day.
ranks, right? Yeah.
And then when I was putting this together, when I first got it, I usually spend 10-15 minutes putting together the kind of rundown, the set list, if you will.
There you go. Nice.
Of today's show, and I'm like, we spent maybe 30 minutes talking about the game Monday night, and we spent maybe 3 minutes talking about the other wild card games.
Right.
That's it.
That would usually be 2 shows.
And I'm like, should I try and pigeonhole that into it? I'm like, nah, who cares, man? We got all this
It'll
Mike
come
Tomlin
up
and all this
again,
Art Rooney stuff.
Right.
And obviously on Friday's show, we'll spend a segment or 2 talking
previewing
all the
it.
divisional round games and get back into it there. But
And folks, you're
right,
more
it's
than
bizarro
welcome to
world.
tweet us and ask questions about it or whatever. We're not ignoring it. There's just too much to talk about.
There is. There's way too much to talk about. And obviously that all centers around the Pittsburgh Steelers for the first time in 19 years having a vacancy at the head coaching position. And Matt, we know now too that the Steelers have at least third interview request that the Steelers have put in. And now it is with Dolphins defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver.
Okay. He's somebody I know more about because he's a player. Super smart. He was a defensive tackle at Notre Dame, reasonably high draft pick, was considered a very versatile player. He could play tackle, he could play end, he can move up and down the line, had a really good knowledge of the position. But, people don't care if he's what kind of player he was necessarily. But, I mean, He was a decent athlete, but he was more.
Second-round pick, 52nd overall.
Yeah, and he had a good career. So something we talked about a lot at the time, the rival Ravens, when they lost McDonald as the head coach to Seattle, he was their defensive coordinator, McDonald. They also lost 2 or 3 of their top assistants. Well, Weaver was one of them. They got hit hard on their defensive coaching staff, and that's not this year, the year before. And if you remember, the first half of the season for the Ravens was a disaster on defense, and then they made all these changes, including their use of Hamilton and all this stuff too.
Put him back in center field role
because they didn't have guys like Weaver to pick up the slack when McDonald left. And frankly, Miami, if you look at their defensive numbers, aren't bad. And their players are pretty bad. I mean, they traded like Phillips, their first-round pick, Grant, the defensive tackle from Michigan, didn't fit in right away. Obviously, they swapped out Minka for Ramsey. Their corner room was really, really bad. But he got more production out of not-so-great players there. But he's considered a very smart, up-and-coming type guy,
He's got, for being only 45 years old, he's been coaching in the NFL since 2012. So he's already been in the league for 13, 14 years.
Yeah, and then went from player to coach.
Started his coaching career in the college ranks with Florida and then North Texas, but then has been in the NFL. I wonder if Max Starks knows any details on Anthony Weaver. But yeah, he was with the Jets and then the Bills and then the Browns and then the Texans and then the Ravens before in 2024 when he got hired as the Dolphins defensive coordinator. So knows the division well. He's been with two different AFC North franchises in the last 10, 12 years here. Ravens recently, Browns a little over a decade ago.
I think he's been linked to the Ravens head job too. I think he's interviewed or scheduled to.
And it's funny. I remember the build up to that Monday Night Football game against the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Of him being a talking point of like, this is a guy to watch in league circles.
Yeah, you'll be hearing his name a lot.
You'll be hearing his name, and he's going to have some opportunities to potentially interview for being a head coach one day, if not this year. And it sounds like that certainly is happening this year, not just here in Pittsburgh, but elsewhere. So,
I mentioned he got a fair amount. They weren't like a great defense, but they got a fair amount out of a bad group of players in Miami. But the fact that he's been mentioned, frankly, from a coordinator off a bad team is kind of rare. Usually coordinators from the Chiefs are hired or the Rams. Right, yes. Exactly, right. He obviously is doing something well, personality, intelligence-wise,
Yes, indeed. And so we know, as of now, the 3 that we know will be 2 on the defensive side of the football, and Shula and Weaver, and then 1 on the offensive side of the football, pass game coordinator.
Yeah. And obviously Weaver's not still in the playoffs.
Yes.
The Rams are. That doesn't mean they won't do Zooms or have communication and stuff like that too, but they won't be here.
Yes. And hey, interviewing some coaches from that Rams staff, I think you and I are both behind.
That's a nice check mark for sure.
I'm all the way I'm all the way willing to entertain that. Absolutely. Other than that, I think that's kind of about the news of the day. Like I'm still trying to make sure we don't miss anything here. Or is there anything that we had
one
left
of the Rams
to get
note
to?
I wanted to throw out though is they see the league a little differently than everybody else. Like they were the first. You talk about wholesale changes. The Rams just have kind of reinvented their own blueprint. So many coaches just do what the coaches have always done. Like it blew me away. They were the first team to say, "We're not sending our coaches to the combine."
Yeah,
they do
years,
things like that.
years in a row.
Yeah. Like we can do everything online. They don't need to be there. They can be home working on plays or whatever.
Their GM would fly in at Indianapolis do his required, because either
they have to be there,
either
yeah.
your GM or your head coach has to speak at the combine.
They have to
That's
go
a
to the
league
podium.
rule.
Right,
One of the
right,
two
right.
has to go to the podium. So their GM would fly in, go to the podium, and do his 15, 20 minutes, and then get back on the plane and fly
Just
back.
to check the box, right,
Would
right.
literally, well, we have to do this obligation so we don't get a big fine from the league.
Yeah, like
Fly him out.
Don't
do
even
your-
turn the private jet off. I'll be back
Exactly
I'll be back
right.
in an hour. Yeah,
Like,
right,
yeah.
right.
Tell your Uber driver, just hang here. I'll be back
here.
out in
I just
20
gotta
minutes.
knock this out real quick and then take me right back where you found me. You know.
I got to go talk to a bunch of media slappies for
Yeah.
about 15, 20 minutes.
And they
take
were
me
like
right
the first
back.
team that like we're not playing anybody in the preseason, and like they aren't afraid to think outside the box as an organization.
Traded their first round
Right.
draft picks for all those years.
Oh yeah,
and
that's what I
everything.
was saying about too. They went like 9 years trading the first round pick and won a Super Bowl.
If you're change, that's the theme of the offseason, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the key word, is change. I think going with somebody who comes from a organization that is
They just look at it differently.
almost polar opposite, not in just area of the country and
Yeah,
all
sure,
that,
sure.
but just almost polar opposite in how they've operated versus how you've operated. That's exciting to me.
Right. It's just bring somebody in that sees it differently. Doesn't mean they're right and you're wrong or whatever, but we can collaborate our ideas and figure it out, you know?
100%. I think there's a lot to be said for that, and that's got me excited about where this is all going to go. And as
It is exciting.
It really is,
Yeah,
isn't
yeah.
it? Like the nerd dork like football host in you is like, this is going to be fun. We're
It's
going to
gonna
have
be
all
fun,
these
right.
names flying around, interviews flying
And the
around.
second it gets finalized, it gets real fun. Like, well, what kind of quarterback will they want? And who are the coordinators they're hiring? And you know what I mean?
Exactly right. We are going to have some fun with this, just kind of scratching the surface here now. But what we do want to do is talk to one of our boots on the ground reporters, journalists, on scene friends that we have here on this show. And one of those guys, of course, is Chris Adamski. We'll hear his thoughts on the resignation of Mike Tomlin, what Art Rooney II had to say today, where the Steelers go in the coming weeks, all of that and more with Adamski when we return on the other side here in hour number 2. Wes Uhler, Matt Williamson. It is The Drive on Steelers Nation Radio on the Steelers Audio Network. Back on The Drive here as we continue to try and make sense of a crazy week as Mike Tomlin, no longer, after 19 years, the head coach of your Pittsburgh Steelers for nearly the first time in 2 decades. The Steelers have a vacancy and a head coaching search that is now ongoing. Joining us now to discuss all of this is, of course, our buddy from the Trib, Chris Adamski, covers the Steelers there, has for over a decade, and, of course, is the co-host of the Steelers Blitz with Tom Opperman. Buzz, thank you for taking the time on a busy day. And let's kind of backtrack to yesterday. What was your initial reaction when the Mike Tomlin news came across the timeline? Surprised? Shocked? Not really? What was that initial reaction like when the Mike Tomlin news broke?
Definitely surprised. Shocked probably goes too far because, you certainly there was more, smoke to the fire over the past few months than there had been any other point over these 19 years in terms of whatever, this relationship ending as coach. And, obviously if you hear some of the crowd chants and things like that from that perspective. And so, put it this way, even the night before, I thought his answer, that really kind of got my ears perked up when and I get it. You want to sit here and especially looking back in hindsight, look at words and this and that and whatever after a emotional loss, the season ends. But he didn't go out of his way really to say anything about wanting to, about the next season or whatever. He kind of said, "Oh, I'm not looking big picture right now." And I remember 2 years ago after Buffalo, he walked out because he was kind of offended by the very idea, right, that he wouldn't be the coach or something like that, as he explained later on. So in that sense, that kind of got me thinking a little bit more. Now, the timing of it was pretty abrupt. I didn't think it would be that quick. And that, we're talking this meeting with Art II, what happened 10 hours, 11 hours after the game ended the night before. So that, in that sense, it was kind of abrupt in that sense, but it makes sense. I'm sure he wanted to address the team, and he did. And by all indications, that was warmly received, and it was, as Art said today, an emotional day at the headquarters and everything. It's 19 years, and he's been the face of the organization, and he's not. Art himself obviously is a face of the organization too. But you guys know, Mike's voice. He walks. You know when he's in a room, right? He walks around. He has a presence to him no matter what. So I'm sure it's going to be different and awkward in a lot of sense for the people who work for the team and been around the team and and all that. So, but I was still surprised. I still would have, I still didn't expect it to happen, I guess.
So, Chris, how do you guess, and I'm sure none of us know, and I don't think they'd even know, the rest of the coaching staff will be handled? I mean, I guess they're all technically still under contract and are probably doing their jobs to some capacity, or they walked away. I don't know what they're doing right this minute, but it doesn't sound like they're going to promote from within. I would think whoever the next coach is will want to hire his people, obviously, but it's also not uncommon to maybe keep a linebackers coach or somebody else that has high regard. Do you think that there could be any overflow?
Yeah, well, there's a few factors in this. First off, the assistant coaches generally are on 2-year deals that get renewed, or sometimes don't get renewed, of course. So some of them, technically, I know until March or whatever, and obviously, but to be real technical in terms of But at this time of year, the football ops, you got to evaluate their future contracts and things like that. And there's the college scouting, and there's still things going on in the scouting area more so, as you know, I'm sure better than me even. But if you remember now, but people have tried to establish patterns with the Steelers, and that's fine, and I get it. But when you're using your 57 years ago as part of your pattern, it's kind of hard to apply the modern style.
I found that so hilarious. Well, they're definitely going to take this kind of coach, because they did 19 years ago and 57 years ago. Yeah, nothing's changed.
Yeah. So, you're going 57, 34, and 19 years ago. So
it's a lot of recency history to go off there.
Right. That's not every 2 years. It's not like a comet flies by every 2 years and does the exact same thing. Right.
Yeah, so to apply to 2026, people point to when Mike Tomlin was hired, he kept the two coordinators. Now, at the time, those are two veteran coordinators who've been around a while, very respected. Yes. Yes. So you have Dick LeBeau, who was a former NFL head coach and one of the most respected coordinators in NFL history, right? Let's face it. So having a 35? Now I'm getting my numbers are all. 35-year-old head coach, 33-year-old head, whatever Tomlin was. You get my point. A young, inexperienced, NFL guy. And so people say, well, the Steelers have always hired a guy in his 30s that played on the defensive side of the ball, and they'll probably bring in another guy. And they very well might. I'm not dismissing that possibility, of course. And if that happens, you would think a good leader, a smart leader would say, hey, I need some institutional experience here. I need somebody who's been around. I know somebody who knows the roster some. I need a veteran NFL coach who's maybe been around for a couple of decades. Now, you can go through the Steelers coaching list and pick out the guys you want. Obviously, the one, just because it's hit you over the head is Danny Smith. He's a local guy, been with the organization for over a decade now, and he's good at what he does still and everything else. But that's just one example. So you would think that, yes, that some of them would I thought it was, especially considering, Arthur Smith might be in Tennessee today for all I know. I don't know what, Art was very he flat out said he didn't see anybody on the current staff being a candidate to be the next coach, which I get, and I'm not saying I disagree with that, but I thought that he was open about that, especially when one of his assistants is interviewing with another team to be their head coach. I thought it was a little bit interesting. So I don't know what, is that a signal? I don't want to parse it too much. Is that a signal that, Arthur Smith, it's been nice knowing him and everything, great, but, we don't think he's a fit to keep going for with us? I don't know. But obviously, especially if it's an offensive, minded head coach, he probably has his own thing and would have his own coordinator, and maybe vice versa if it was on defense. So, generally speaking, if I had to guess right now, I'll put the over/under at 2.5 of the current coaches stay on, maybe something
Makes
like
sense.
that, and you can pick from there. Yeah.
Chris Adamski with us here on The Drive. Let's talk a little timeline here for a second, Buzz. Mr. Rooney saying today, I think a few weeks at least was his answer when he was kind of asked about a timeline. In times like this, I always harken back to that famous John Wooden line that he used to always say of be quick, but don't hurry, right? That was like what John Wooden would tell his players, act with speed and purpose, but don't rush and be careless at the same time. Does sometime here in the month of January, does that feel like a right timeline? They've already announced, some of the names have already been reported that they're going to bring in for interviews. Or do you think that we could, possibly get into February, maybe even closer to the combine, and still be waiting for a final verdict here?
Well, the one part of that, the obvious part that don't need me to lay out, is if it's somebody that's on a staff of a coach team that's still playing or is playing next week and is playing in the Super Bowl, your timetable. Now, obviously, that in some way will leak, I'm sure, at very least, if they decide on whatever, just throw in a name out to whoever. I don't even want to put names out necessarily.
One of the Rams guys.
So, whether in the Rams or in the Super Bowl. And I would imagine if they, there will be interviews, of course, and there's a process like that in terms of when you can do it, and that's all laid out by the league, and it's done to protect the team. You don't want to happen what happens in the college football playoff, right? You don't want anything like that to ever happen, and you also want to get these guys opportunities to grow their careers too. So I think the NFL, it's deliberate, and I think in some ways Art mentioned, and I don't want to say in a negative light, but he said this is going to take there's a lot of hoops we got to jump through here, a lot of things procedures we got to follow in terms of the timing, in terms of who and when and all that. So, but yes, if it is a coach that's still around or alive that gets to the Super Bowl or something, you won't have certainly won't have a press conference until that third week of February, second week of February. I guess late in the second week of February, however you want to put it. Now, I would think again it would probably come out in some way or another that it's imminent or it's about to happen or. In that sense. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that I don't think it's a surprise per se, but Art was pretty open that it seems like the entire football staff, and I'm talking, management staff for football operations, it seems like it's going to stay in place, and it's not as if they're. It was a question at least to be asked. When he came out, one of the first things he said is, "Omar and I will lead the search." Well, I guess Omar's staying on. So
sure, I think that's safe to say. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a surprise per se, but I mean, a lot of times a head coach, hey, you never know. It might be somebody who either wants control or has, some kind of like that. So in other words, as long as the wheel keeps turning here and football ops is doing their scouting and getting ready for the draft and pro scouting and everything, there's not a super rush. It's not like a college team where recruiting and you need a head coach and you need a staff and everything like that.
Transfer portal's closing.
Everything else There's no. I mean, you don't want like you say, you don't want to drag out by any means, for sure. But I don't think there's any reason to be impatient about it, and certainly that meshes with how Art himself described the process here going forward.
Yeah, and I don't want to speculate on who the Steelers' 2026 starting quarterback is going to be because we don't even know the system. I mean, who knows? But do you think it's now unlikely that Rodgers returns?
Yeah, I definitely.
Yeah,
we
got that feeling too.
We just had this conversation. It's funny. Somebody had, well, what if the choice is Matt LaFleur? Like, well,
that was the only time I thought maybe you could.
Yeah. Which I guess is and some has to be somewhat in play here as a possibility that LaFleur would be here. And if that's the case, then that might fit in that sense. But you just. Philosophically, there's a lot of reasons for a new head coach. As an organization. And they were pretty upfront about, even before this happened, that they were looking at quarterbacks this year. Doesn't mean necessarily they're taking a quarterback in the first round or have strong intentions to, especially as another one that dropped off the board here in the last 20 minutes, Dante Moore going back to school. So this all of a sudden, this QB draft class, it seems by the day it gets worse and worse, or it gets less. We were told for a couple of years ago the 2026 QB draft class, and for one reason or another, it's turned into I don't want to get too far, and I don't know how it'll all play out. Sometimes these things change still in terms of getting the evaluation of the combine, but it seems like it's not going to be a real strong class all of a sudden. But regardless of that, you in an ideal world, if it's possible, putting a new young head coach and a new young quarterback together and pairing them together, it has appeal to it, right? If that works, doesn't mean you force it, doesn't mean you make yourself do that. But in an ideal world, I think that would be something that would be good to grow with as an organization. So between that and between Rodgers being really open, from the time he signed here, that Mike Tomlin was a big reason why he wanted to be here, and maybe he doesn't want to start over too with somebody. There's a good chance he'll be older than the head coach if the Steelers bring in a new head coach, which doesn't mean anything per se, but it also might be a little awkward. If you're a new coach, you have a guy who's and hey, I think Rodgers was great here this year for what he was, but he's a strong personality. If you're a new coach trying to put in a culture, I don't know if you want the Hall of Fame 22-year veteran quarterback kind of, being a bigger voice than you, if that makes any sense.
So this just kind of dawned on me is when you mentioned the front office is going to remain in place, Omar is going to be back, which I'm happy about. Usually this time of year, one of the first things I start talking about are, the Tomlin's obviously been in place for this process, that you start talking to some of your free agents to be before they hit the market. Like, can you lock up Pierre or somebody like that? Do you think you have to put that on hold until you know the coach, or do you just offer Pierre a contract anyways? I just pulled him out of the air because I think wouldn't be a hard one to do, and he played well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could still have the evaluations of those players going on, and Art talked about this too, and it makes sense. A head coach, and no matter what you think of how much quote unquote power Tomlin had, or in personnel decisions, and then where who at the final, all that stuff that we got into every year in the draft, and you want your head coach, obviously, philosophically, whatever, he's going to have an offensive idea and a defensive idea, and there might be body types, there might be certain types of, there might be position
doesn't fit the new system, right?
More, exactly. So you want to do that, but I still think that even if this does go like the first week of February, which you still got 5 weeks then before free agency, right? I think that's still plenty of time to, whether negotiate or talk to, and you can keep doing your evals, and I'm sure the players that they like that are free agents, they're keeping in touch with I'm sure the agents keep in touch with them and things like that too, in terms of what they do. And I have noticed too, a lot of times, even the guys they want to bring back and they still, whether it's, it's like so many times the Steelers will re-sign one of their guys that are going to announce, that afternoon free agency starts, right? It's like, did they say, you know what, just give me that, I'm going to go out here, or they say, hey, go test your market. If not, we've got this waiting for you. But it's once you get to 5 o'clock, the tampering day, if you don't come back to us, we're going to have to find ourselves a left guard, man. So you're going to make a decision, something like that. Yeah. That's probably how it plays out, because it's seems like an inordinate. I'm just like, why'd they wait till now? They could have signed him 2 months ago, But there must be something along those lines that both sides kind of want to do it that way. So if that's kind of the timeline that it seems like it's used, like I have to go back and see. But it's anecdotally, it's up top of my head though. I don't feel like the Steelers do re-signings. They announce them in January or February. It's usually always, maybe a week or two leading into free agency, but usually not till March there.
And I can't imagine the new head coach is going to be like, oh no, I'm not taking the job. You guys re-signed James Pierre.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think anything. No, maybe a quarterback. That's a big decision.
Rodgers would be a different decision, obviously.
Yeah. And as we know with that doesn't seem like something that will. If that does happen, from past experience, you can expect the over on the decision day, not the under, right. I guess, right?
Chris Adamski, kind enough to lend us some time here in the middle of a busy week. Real quick before you go, Buzz, and I will preface this by saying typically I hate it when people ask me these type of put me on the spot and I'll think of a better answer 5 minutes from now type questions. But that's why I host the show instead of being a guest on it, okay? Do you have...
I'll remember this next week when you're on our show.
That's exactly. You can pay me back, certainly. Oh, darn it. Vengeance is a dish best served on the Blitz next week. Favorite Tomlin moment or Tomlinism or something that'll stick with you for whatever reason in the last 24 hours or so as I've been racking my brain at this. A lot of the, you have red paint, you paint the barn red.
Sure.
I'd rather say whoa than sick 'em.
But there's been a lot of fun podium moments.
There's been a lot of fun ones. And for me, I just keep laughing and chuckling about 2019 when Mason Rudolph got knocked out of the game by that nasty hit against the Ravens and Earl Thomas. And remember, his face mask was off.
Yeah, right. It was a crazy look. Yeah.
And they couldn't get a cart out to the field to cart him off, so he had to, walk, and he was Juju was, holding him up, and he's wobbling, and he doesn't have the face mask on. It was just a really bizarre scenario.
Yeah.
And he's asked about it in the postgame, and he says, I don't drive carts and things of that nature. Ask somebody who's in charge of that. For the last 24 hours, the Mike Tomlin's voice of I don't drive carts and things of that nature has been running through my mind. Is there a moment like that stands out to you, Chris, that you'll laugh and remember fondly in the years to come about Mike Tomlin?
I will say this is out of affection. I don't think it's anything, maybe you'll think it's odd or something, but I have a folder in my phone from press conferences of Tomlinisms or different little quotes he will say that I can deploy during text groups or something like that. And somebody asked me, I have no idea what you just asked or something, something like that or whatever. And I do like the, just because it involves imbibing in alcohol, I guess, but what's a fine line between squashing grapes and drinking wine in this business? He says, and I'm interested in drinking a little bit of wine. That's what he said.
That is good.
At one point. That'd be my favorite Tomlinism for sure. And in terms of on the field type stuff, I don't, man, I wish I had a better. You're right. I couldn't put on the spot here. There is some. It's been that long too, man. It's like well before I was even on the beat. I'm just not that long out of college as watching Tomlin. All the things he's done. But yeah, and the one thing you could say is, man, you can see why in a interview setting he walked into that room. I mean, the orator he is.
Oh yeah.
And just the voice he has, and the term, the things he comes up with, and the analogies, and and some of them are funny, some of them are cute, some of them are really good. Like, wow, that actually makes a lot of sense, right? And even we're talking to Dino, telling his son about it once. That's the way he talks to me too. Don't worry.
Really?
Things like that.
Not an actor.
That's just who he is. Yeah, exactly. So it's that'll definitely be missed, because whoever the standard is the standard when it comes to the Tomlin, or having your whatever you want to. I actually can't call them Tomlinism anymore. Coachisms.
That's right.
During news conferences every Tuesday. So everybody will miss that aspect of it, I'm sure, going forward.
Chris Adamski, thank you for taking the time, partner. We'll be looking forward to listening to you and Tom react to this all week as well on the Blitz. Thanks for joining us.
All right, thanks, guys. See you around.
There he is. There he goes. The buzzsaw, Chris Adamski.
Remind me of a quick story that it's nothing to do with that. But when my time at Pitt, our offensive line coach was Tom Freeman, and he's a great guy. I learned so much football from him. He was super into recruiting. But he had all these Freemanisms. And the O-lineman put together this book of them, which was pretty awesome and hilarious. Man, that dude looks like a bag full of doorknobs. Sometimes centers look like a bag full of doorknobs, especially when you can't recruit the top guys. Things like that. I mean, they had this packet they put together, good. The whole lineman of Freemanisms, which was really funny.
All right, one more for you. Now that you're saying offensive lineman and jogging my memory. In the pre-COVID days, like 3 or 4 days a week, Tunch and Wolf used to do their show down at the facility.
Right.
Because they would do the show and then go right to practice.
And they were one of the offices. I remember Dale and I had to do it there once for some reason.
And so I was their on-site engineer producer. That was one of my first gigs here when I started. Yeah. So 3 or 4 days a week, we'd be down doing it was actually rare that we were back here, more rare that we were back at the studios doing shows.
You're down there more than here.
4 days a week. I think press conference days were the only days that we were here and not down there.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Every other day, so every day except for Tuesday, we were down at the facility because those guys wanted to watch practice and because they wanted the free lunch at the Steelers cafeteria.
There's some perks, too.
Let's be honest. Yeah. But, man, in those 2 years, 18 and 19, before COVID, that I did that with Tunch and Wolf, at least once a month, they would go to break, and Mike Tomlin would pop, the door would open into the conference room that they were in, and Tom would poke his head in and be like, "Can you guys keep it down, please?"
Oh, really?
Because they'd get telling stories.
Wolf's loud and
talking, about the telling Chuck Noll stories. So he was actually
serious.
And he'd poke his head in and be like, "Hey, I'm trying to watch film over here. Can you guys keep it down?"
Yeah, football. I mentioned it earlier. Football offices are quiet.
Yeah, and Tunch and Wolf telling stories and arguing and laughing and.
You think a bunch of ex-jocks are loud. I mean, no. On Tuesday at this time, football offices are quiet.
Yeah, they're in there breaking down film, and game planning, and all that stuff. And they hear Wolf laughing about a jelly glazed donut from 100 yards down the hallway. And be like, "Can you keep it down in there? You guys are way too loud."
That's great.
Just little things like that we'll always laugh about. Matt. One more segment to go here. Throughout these last couple segments and today's show and everything, even more names now being reported that the Steelers have reached out to. So you know what? Maybe I was going to try and do some pros and cons of the Steelers' job here in the last segment. Let's save that for tomorrow because
That's fine. Yeah.
I feel like we can make a whole hour out of that.
It's not going to change in the next 24 hours.
It's not going to change. Unless they somehow get that first overall pick or Fernando Mendoza.
Or bring Rodgers comes back or something, but anyway, whatever.
So let's save that. We'll do a bigger picture show and spend more time on that tomorrow. Let's run through some more of these names that we now know that the Steelers have requested for their head coaching interviews as we cross some T's and dot some I's before our final segment on the other side. We'll do that when we return. Wes Uhler, Matt Williamson. It is The Drive on Steelers Nation Radio on the Steelers Audio Network. Final segment here of The Drive on this busy Wednesday.
Real busy.
as we tell you what. Again, I said this at the beginning of the show. I feel like I'm in the circus, just trying to juggle everything and make sure we don't miss anything, and we're keeping up to date on all this moving and shaking around the future of the Steelers head coaching position. Before we get to a couple other names that are being reported that the Steelers have put requests in, I got some Dante Moore, Dylan Raiola clarity for you.
Oh, really?
Okay. So, Dylan Raiola picked up a leg injury at the end of last year.
Okay.
I don't think it's crazy significant, but it sounds like he's on board with this. He's going to sit behind Dante Moore for a year, let that leg fully heal and recover, and then take over the reins starting in 2027.
Oh, wow.
It
So
sounds
he has
like
that much eligibility left, too, then.
I guess so.
Not that I'm super concerned about Raiola's future,
Right,
more so than Moore's.
But he did break a bone in his leg towards the end of the season, so he's going to take time, fully recover, and be the starter in 2027.
Okay. Well, I guess Moore's mind is made up. Does it? And I don't know. Or you mentioned this before. Oregon's got a chance to win the whole thing next year. And
They bring back, just on paper right now, they probably bring back the most talent of anybody. There's still a million things that can change between now and then in portal and recruiting.
But they're guaranteed to be a preseason top 5.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, they made it to the national semi. Got embarrassed by Indiana, but they made it to the national semifinal.
Right.
And were, I think, the youngest roster, pretty significantly with the teams that were in the playoff.
You know me, I look at the NFL ramifications, and it's not pretty.
It's not.
It really isn't.
And that's the most surprising part, I think, because I think at worst he would have been the second overall pick.
And everyone says this every year, and it gets old, but his competition at the top of next year's draft is going to be way harsher than this year's.
Totally.
I mean, there's no doubt about that.
The other side of that, though, that I'll give to him on this one is if. I'm assuming he really likes life at Oregon.
I bet he's got a really good life. Yeah.
He's well compensated in NIL these days.
Yeah.
At Nike University there.
Not so shabby.
Not so shabby. If they're telling him, here's this big chunk of change we're going to give you to come back, you can live as a college student for another year.
One more year. Maybe win the Natty.
I get that too.
Oh, I do too. I do too. These guys are always buds. Yeah, right.
Yeah. I think there's something to be said for that in this NIL era of I think sometimes kids just want to stay kids for another year or two and make some money while they're doing it, and there's nothing wrong with that.
And there's also a chance, I don't know if there's any truth to it, but maybe the NFL said you're not guaranteed to be a top 5 pick. They might not like him quite as much. You got to work on this.
Totally.
All right,
and his last game against Indiana, he did not bathe himself in glory.
Yeah,
in fact, quite the opposite. So there's always a lot of different angles to consider, but we do know that you can take his name out of the equation, Dante Moore. So I think a few weeks ago, you and I would have said Ty Simpson comes back, Dante Moore goes to the draft. Now they've flip-flopped. I think that's really kind of the only significant surprise in each direction at this point, but there'll be more.
My draft prep is so infantile right now.
Same here.
But still, I was just asked on Twitter, is this the weakest top of the draft you can remember?
For quarterbacks. And you just mean in general?
And the answer for both is yes. It's
even more so than last year, because last year there wasn't the crazy blue chippers at the top.
I know. The last couple drafts have not been great. And Steelers,
I like the middle classes in them.
I don't know enough about this one, but I think
not this one.
Yeah, right. It's not the best year to be drafting super high.
Hey, maybe it'll all work out in the
plenty of time to dissect that.
Yeah, there certainly is. Certainly is.
So who are these other coaching requests?
2 more that we now know by reports that the Steelers have submitted a request to interview, both on the defensive side of the football. One, a name that we're familiar with. One would be a new name, a new change. The first, it's a name that's been thrown around a lot, and now it's official. Steelers have requested an interview with Chargers defensive coordinator Jesse Minter.
So not shocked by that.
He's
if I had to
39,
pick
40
2
years
guys
old.
that I bet they were interviewed, it'd have been, before we walked in today, it'd have been Minter and Shula.
Both youngish, still late 30s, early 40s.
Right.
Rising.
Great reputation.
Great reputation as a rising, ascending defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
I mean,
obviously heavy Harbaugh ties, of course. He's been linked to the Ravens job as well,
yes,
which I totally would get. We even said this when the Steelers played the Chargers this year. It was like, man, I'm not so sure why this Chargers defense is as good as it is, because on paper they're not that impressive, and he's gotten a lot out of them. And they do some innovative stuff.
They do, because he was with that Ravens. He was with the Ravens for a while, from 2017 to 2020.
In it's typical Harbaugh fashion, they pass their buddies around.
And then he went to Michigan and became the defensive coordinator for 2 years and won a national championship there with the other Harbaugh.
Just like McDonald did.
And then followed him to Southern California these last 2 years with the Chargers. So he's got extensive college and NFL background. Notre Dame, Cincinnati, Indiana State, Georgia State, the Baltimore Ravens, Vanderbilt, Michigan, the LA Chargers, defensive coordinator of that national champion 2023 Michigan Wolverines team. I worry for our buddy Mike Pursuta if they end up hiring Jesse Mentor. Will he be able to sit in a press conference with this former Wolverine and not get out of line? So he's the one, and I think you're absolutely right. I think most Steelers fans in the last 24 hours had heard about the 2 LA defensive coordinators.
Yes.
Chris Shula, Jesse Mentor. Shula, I think, is 39. Mentor's 42. Both in that young and ascending defensive coordinator conversation, and we know that that's certainly an area that the Steelers are going to be looking to pull from. The other is a defensive coordinator, well-known. I don't know if I would really call him ascending and young anymore, but he's certainly not old, and that is formerly of this parish, current Vikings defensive coordinator. Brian Flores. Or pardon me, I guess he's not, because his contract expired. He's a true free agent. He is interviewing with the Washington Commanders today, or has already, for their for their defensive coordinator job. So he was kind of interviewing around for some DC jobs. The Steelers have requested to interview him for their head coaching vacancy.
Also doesn't shock me. I think most people know his story. I mean, he's been considered a phenomenal defensive mind. His stint in Miami was bizarre / rocky as a head coach. So he does have head coaching experience. There are reports, and again, I said this to open the show, I don't know these guys' personalities, and, that he rubbed a lot of people wrong, and he was pretty abrasive there as a head guy. But then kind of rehabilitated his image a little bit by coming here. And frankly, I think the league blackballed him to some degree. I mean, there's a lot of that out there.
I certainly think that's part of it.
And I think there's even a lawsuit out there or something.
Yes.
I mean, it's not like I just made that up. So the Steelers bring him in as linebacker coach and quickly becomes defense coordinator for the Vikings. And that's another team that I remember Vikings week in Dublin saying, I don't think there's that many defensive players on the Vikes that would start for the Steelers, and they probably have a better defense than the Steelers. Because this guy does crazy stuff. Really innovative, highly aggressive. My immediate thought with him, and true for the other defense coordinators, but particularly him, because I think we know more about him. I would really hope he brings a quarterback whisperer with him. You know what I mean?
That's any of these defensive guys.
Of course.
My overarching thought, and again, we're going to really jump into the weeds, dig into the weeds tomorrow with this stuff.
Yeah.
My overarching thought is, I want a young ascending offensive mind, and I want to either this draft or next draft step up to the plate and take a swing on your next franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
And even if that coach ends up not being a long-term guy, if 4 years from now, 5 years from now, he's out, if he develops you your next quarterback, fine, totally worth it.
Totally worth it, right.
Like that, identifying, procuring, and developing your next franchise quarterback is my priority number one as it relates to everything.
I said this when they drafted Pickett. I mean,
everything else is polishing brass
the guys
on the
that help you in the
Titanic.
parking lot. Right. It's all about developing the next quarterback. You can't just Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers and Mitch Trubisky it forever.
No, you can't.
You could maybe do that one more year because the options don't present themselves. But yeah,
you can't force it. But you also got to step up to the plate and take a swing at some point.
Yes.
And with that in mind,
that has to be the franchise's top priority.
Exactly.
Finding the next Ben.
Exactly right. Exactly right. I don't care if you're going to bring in Andy Reid, dipped in Sean McVay.
Yeah.
You need that next quarterback is the priority.
Mm-hmm.
But while my perfect scenario would be a Liam Cohen, a Ben Johnson. And I know that's so easy and convenient to say.
There were more of them a year ago than there are now.
And what they did with the reputations of Caleb Williams and Trevor Lawrence in such a short amount of time. But if they do go with one of these defensive minds, I'm willing to still be optimistic, excited, all those things, as long as you got to bring in a proper, proven offensive coordinator.
Yeah, that might not last year, because if he does his job, he's going to get hired by somebody else in 2 years.
Great.
That
if he's here
you
for 2 or 3
goal,
years
right.
and he helps you get your next franchise quarterback, outstanding.
Yeah.
In fact, if you want to prick my finger, Matt Williamson, here on camera, I'll sign for that in blood right, right now.
And the other approach is what the Patriots did, is 2 proven dudes, Vrabel and McDaniel. Not just Vrabel. I mean, Vrabel's coach of the year. He did a tremendous job. Well, he's like one of the best offensive coordinators, a lifer offensive coordinator that's doing great things with Drake May, too, you know.
It's like if you were...
Why did May take this huge step from year 1 to 2? Well, there's some reasons.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly
right. It'd be like if you got the Ben Johnson or the Liam Cohen and paired him with a Jim Schwartz. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
or
that's the
LeBeau. You know, like
exactly
right.
Like exactly right.
Yeah.
Last thing for you on Flores that I wanted to make sure to circle back to. Remember how we talked about our buddy Cody Alexander, match quarters, and his NFL defensive scheme diversity ratings or grades or however he put it?
Yeah.
Minnesota was number 2 on that list.
That was a shock.
Second most diverse defense in the NFL. They were like a 90-something, 91 or 93, something like that, based off of. And the
Steelers were actually kind of high on that too, but I can promise you that if Flores were the head coach here, T.J. Watt wouldn't always line up on the left and Highsmith on the right and Cam over the left guard. I mean, like there'd be a massive amount of things you haven't seen before.
Yes, and that could certainly be on the docket as we're seeing and discussing a lot of things that have not been seen and discussed for a long time.
Yeah, such a different way of looking at the team.
It's funny. I'm laughing. I'm scrolling through Twitter here, just making sure no last-minute news, no last-minute anything like that we've missed that we need to make sure to bring into the fold here. Dan Orlovsky, of course, of ESPN, just quote tweeted the Dante Moore news of him returning, and he said, "Let me reiterate, Malik Willis is going to be highly paid this offseason."
Oh, yeah.
Malik Willis, another one who gets happier as more and more of these quarterbacks go back to college.
I bet his price tag goes up, but I am very interested.
We will discuss that plenty in the following days and weeks. So real quick, the 5 names that we know that the Steelers are requesting to interview: Brian Flores, of course, Vikings defensive coordinator that we just mentioned; Jesse Minter, Chargers defensive coordinator; Anthony Weaver, Miami Dolphins defensive coordinator; Chris Shula, LA Rams defensive coordinator; and then Nathan Shellhouse, pass game coordinator of the LA Rams. So far, 4 DCs and 1 pass game coordinator.
So I know a lot of people will be like, you have to hire an offensive guy. And I certainly understand that line of thinking. But I just wanted to tell you, there's 8 teams that are still alive. 4 of those coaches are offensive, 4 are defenses. There's a lot of ways to win this league.
I'm glad you brought that up because I had that conversation with our buddy Tom.
Oh, did you?
We were talking about the same thing. Like, I hope they go and get an offensive guy. This was yesterday. I hope they go and get an offensive guy. Wouldn't it be a nice if they really want to change, a widespread, wholesale changes, get an offensive guy? And then I was watching TV and the graphics of the 8 teams still remaining are up, and I'm going through my mind. I'm like, Bears offensive guy, Rams offensive guy. Okay, but like
Bills aren't.
Patriots aren't.
Right,
Broncos are. I mean, it's a lot of. There's 4 and 4. There's 8 head coaches left. 4 defensive backgrounds. 4 are offensive backgrounds. So you're right. There's no one way to skin a cat, or else everybody would do it that way. But I'm just, whether it's the head coach or the offensive coordinator, I'm just very intrigued.
Quarterback.
Very intrigued to see how it relates to the future of the quarterback position.
I mean, it's been 24 hours since Coach Tomlin gave his resignation, and boy, we are going to get tired of saying it's all about the next quarterback. It's all about the next quarterback.
It's fun now, but
it'll
be tiresome eventually.
That's got to be the theme.
Matt, a lot of fun today. Enjoying this brave new world, whole new world that we're navigating together, one show at a time. Thanks to Chris Adamski for joining us on a busy day. Thanks to Nathan for producing on the radio side. Mr. TV, Tyler V, keeping us handsome on YouTube. For Matt Williamson, I'm Wes Uhler. Tomorrow, the pros and cons of the Steelers head coaching job. Where does it rank now amongst the 9 in total vacancies across the NFL for head coaches? We will really start to deep dive and dissect all of that on the program on Thursday. So we'll talk to you tomorrow. As always, you know where to find us. It's on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. It's Steelers Nation Radio on the Steelers Audio Network.